Welcome in, everyone. Today we are diving into a new build for 5 Builders, 1 City, a collaborative build amongst several content creators, and it is my turn yet again to add something to our capital city. The last time we worked on the capital city, we actually built the massive mall, the park that kind of runs through part of the town. And today we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to focus a little bit more on a new project, a mix of residential commercial that is going to be tied closely to Yumble's College, along with a little bit of a fancy neighborhood that's going to sit on a peninsula elevated over the water on some cliffs. So if you are new here, be sure to hit the subscribe button, drop a like if you enjoyed the video, leave a comment if you have any suggestions or thoughts on the build. And if you haven't checked us out at twitch.tv/slay3k, come give us a follow sometime and check us out. So after catching up on what everybody did, I had a really hard time deciding what I wanted to focus on. I thought about doing something more that would go into the industrial route, and then I went back to doing something kind of residential. And I've had some struggles deciding how I want to take this on, so when I'm talking about it, it may change as we progress through the build. But around Yumble's Smart People School or college, I wanted to set up some residential and maybe a little bit of commercial to start building this and making it look more developed around the college. To me, this gives me like sort of inner city, like campus vibes. And what I wanted to put around it would be like some commercial, maybe in this area, surrounded by residential, like sort of a medium density, no tall buildings. And then up here, I wanted to set up sort of a little secluded neighborhood. Now I thought about pulling in a bunch of like fancy houses that can be set on cliffs and stuff, but I realized I was going to add a lot of props and assets to our shared build. So I'm going to use self-sufficient housing and try to make this into a little bit of a very natural, organic feeling neighborhood on this elevated peninsula. In terms of terraforming, I think I actually want to lower this a little bit so it's not so drastic of a height change from down here. It just looks kind of steep, but around the edges, not so much on this slope. So that's a factor that may come into play here shortly. But first and foremost, I want to figure out infrastructure in terms of roads. So what I think I want to do is I want to shift over the tram stop, which is currently right here on both sides, and I want to move that closer to here, only so that we can have a road that runs this way, and not to have too many stops near this. I'm thinking I'm going to dip this underground. So let's get started with that. And we're going to go to tram, and bear with me, guys. I haven't been playing a lot of cities lately. So I am rusty, which is, that's a whole thing. That's a whole nother conversation. So first thing is I want to take a couple of these out. We're going to keep this pretty straightforward and simple. I'm just going to duck this underground, and then we'll kind of tweak it as needed to get it in the spot we want. Something like there, and then back up. Okay. So now that's set up, you can see each side is different, and how we can adjust that is extending the node in front. And then what I would like to do is go underground here with move it. And I'm going to lower this until I don't really see. There you go. I don't want like a little grassy lump in the ground. I kind of want it to look smooth. And you see it's like a little bit off center. Not too concerned with it, but we'll just tweak it a little bit. Just shift it over here, just so it looks maybe a little more clean. I'm going to go ahead and match this road, and I'm going to pull this out this way. And now you can really see how far off it is. So after I said I wasn't concerned about it, we're going to shift it over a little bit more. And you can see, I think this one's tackling some nodes, and this is off a little bit. Now let's pop into the underground view, and we're going to move this node back a little bit more until we just make this look kind of uniform and clean. I think that'll be good for starters. Something I also want to kind of add here, just a little detail. Since we have the station here, I just want to do like a little bit of a, oops, let's turn off collision. Can I do that, or is it going to be janky? It's going to be a little janky. So with that, let's make it a little bit more of a clean line there. I feel like some nice landscaping can go in here eventually. Even like some tall trees. What would that? Conifers or something like that. Is it conifers? I don't remember. I'm not much of a green thumbs to know the different trees, to be honest with you. I'm going to clear out an area for us to start working on building. Now, I did say I wanted a mix of commercial and residential. So I think the initial space here is going to be almost like a little bitty town, and then a secluded neighborhood on the peninsula that's going to be a more natural. I don't know, just something to consider, just making a little bit of something different here. I also need to monitor. This is pretty steep drop off, so we may need to tweak that, but for now it will do. Let's see how we can design something that's going to be kind of neat here. So I kind of want to come over with a, yeah, like about a, something like that maybe. I think down here, I want to stick to something that's more uniform in terms of the road design, maybe a little bit more gridded. And then once we get up to the slope, I think we're going to go very much organic and sort of match the curves of the peninsula. At least that is my intent. We can see how it works out. It could go very poorly. But that is part of experimenting within cities, right? Let's see. How can I set this up to be sort of not too structured and boring, but we're going to take this up here. I'm going to have this road come off there just for now. Something like that. Which one is that again? That is that guy. Okay. So this has parking on it, which is kind of cool. Now I can already see that we're hitting that slope a little bit earlier than I thought we were going to. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure this is all level down here. Like so. And then what I may need to do is go ahead and give us like a kind of a hard line so we can keep track of where it is, which is somewhere in there. I don't know if I want to do a retaining wall or like some sort of private access, but I think what we'll do is after we start setting up this area and get the kind of the layout down, I can start going into to figuring out how I want to transition into the height of the peninsula. Again, I may lower it a little bit just to reduce the intensity of the cliffs facing the water. All right. So I'm going to pause for a minute and we're going to go into here. We're going to put like a little cluster of stuff in. And I think what I also would like to do, and maybe this is a little bit extra, but I kind of want to have, let's do it a little off-centered. And then I want to grab parking lot roads, and I just want to do like a little parking lot inside of there. Oh, I just realized I've been hitting the wrong button because I'm using a foreign keyboard. Foreign in the sense of a keyboard I'm not used to using, so it's quiet. Because my other keyboard is quite clicky. I don't know if you guys have clicky keyboards. It's great until you need to record something, and then it's not great anymore. So maybe we can do that. I know that's kind of odd that we're going to break up the grid a little bit like that, but I think having like the parking in the middle will reduce some of the... We'll reduce like some of the gap in some of the buildings and stuff. What I'm also tempted in doing is switching this out to be this guy right here. Oops. Yes. And then if you want to get fancy with it, we could go ahead and do an area where it wraps around there. That would make each side a little more even. We're going to dezone that and leave it here. So it's got a little mini parking lot tucked in the middle. I like doing parking lots where they're kind of simple like this, only because I feel like you can kind of do some neat things when you start to piece different parking lots together. Yes, 1x4 brush. This is a lifesaver, dude. Perfect. I already have an idea, I think, too, for what I want to do on my part of the build, closer to the beach town that we developed in the last video that I did for the 5B1C series. And I think it's going to be pretty neat once we get over there. We're going to do, I think, well, I'm going to go ahead and say we're going to do this, and then we'll figure it out as we get there. I think the area we're going to focus on is around the marsh and stuff. So I think what we'll be working on is a little bit of terraforming and some nature, like designing and stuff like that. And then kind of blending in stuff closer to the highway. So if you remember the build, I think many of you commented on how the highway didn't really match the build for the town. And I very much agree. I think I even mentioned that in the last episode. I just didn't really have a plan to fix that yet. Well, now I sort of have an idea is that we're just going to keep it to like a very, very kind of like low capacity sort of interchange. And we're going to bring the marsh up to the highway a little bit to compensate for like where the highway is sort of elevated already. Go to city planning. I want to put a high-rise ban on this. We're going to do that because I don't want this to be very big as opposed to some of the other areas that are growing rapidly. I just want a nice little area across the street from the college itself. So here we go. Let's go ahead and do a commercial pocket here on this side. Maybe we can have a building facing this way as well. That'd be nice. And I'm going to do the same right there. And then out towards the outside of it, I think I want to go ahead and work on like over here. Maybe we can do residential kind of near the water, which is, I think, again, sort of a higher value part of the property and land. You know, they do a lot of these like these sort of neighborhoods now where they have like the whole commercial area and residential all figured out in advance. I think, you know, from if I had like a bazillion assets added to this, I think that it would be something that would be like really cool to explore. But man, doing some of that the way I envision it always takes like so many assets. It's kind of crazy, which is like tough, I think, for us for the most part, just because we're passing around the build. So it can get a little overwhelming if, you know, something gets lost in translation or something goes missing in terms of what assets we need. All right, you can see this is developing relatively quickly. So I feel like in here would be a good spot for some apartments or maybe like a little residential pocket. I think apartments is kind of the idea that I want to follow in this space. But first, let's go ahead and see if we can smooth this out a little bit. I just don't want to be building on the slope just yet. I don't know. I'm picky about like how I place buildings on some of this sort of terrain because I feel like it's pretty easy to cause a little bit of chaos depending on how like your slopes work. Because cities, like, while it can handle some of the terrain change itself, it doesn't always like work out very well. And I know some of you will know what I'm talking about. When you start having buildings do some wild stuff is when I start losing it a little bit. Put a crossroad there. And then I think what we're going to do is just a couple, let's dezone that for now. Put some residential in here. Okay, so the area is very quickly getting developed, which is fantastic. I'm so tempted to do like a parking strip here and a walkway. I don't know how the terrain is going to react to that given how this is set up here. I'm curious. I kind of want to see what this would do. Like if we made like took some of this here and did something like that and shifted it over closer to the canal itself. Just to kind of clean up this edge a bit. And maybe make it kind of look like it's a part of this part of town, you know? That is an intense, very, very high wall, unfortunately. I don't know if the canal was kind of concepted to be like a ship canal. So far, it hasn't turned into that yet, but obviously it still could. Still could here. Okay. Let's see if we can have this kind of come over. That'll smooth out this terrain. Hey, that doesn't look so bad. Let's get this at the appropriate height. So now we've almost made like a cool little walkway attached to all this, which is pretty awesome. Okay, so what sort of property we have left to develop? We don't have much except for maybe something here. And then we'll have to, again, figure out how we want to incorporate this into the next area. Something I probably should have done is actually had a path that ran into this side of town from the tram. I wonder if it's harmful to do something along here, just kind of running along the edge that can kind of connect to the seawall that we just put in a little bit. You know, give access to this point, I think would be great. Okay. It definitely wants to build a bridge there. We're gonna have that shift this way. Here we go. Not too bad. Not too shabby. And this will give us a connection point here, maybe. So with some detailing, I think that could look okay. So like if you take this, you have like direct access into this part of town, which is kind of cool. If they decide to use it, who knows? We all know how the Sims can be. Something I think would be neat here is just some pathing to make almost like a little park on the water. I wish I was better at like geometric pathing, you know, doing stuff that was like less organic, but had sort of an organic geometric, you know, kind of design. I tried to do that a little bit with the city park, but it was kind of tough to like envision and do. but it's all very even. But doing stuff that's, I guess, uneven but geometric would be really kind of a neat twist to that area. But okay, let's see how I want to. I don't want to build bridges to it, so I think we're gonna have to do it in like little stages and then connect it probably, kind of like this. And then with some detailing, I think that could look really nice as well. And we had like 1-2 people using it. That's good. Okay. So how do we want to transition up here? Like what I'm thinking, maybe we should lower this all just a little bit. Obviously not to the height that everything is at. I do want some of a terrain change here. So I'm going to start with something and then we'll see how this kind of goes. And if I mess it up, we're in trouble. So why am I lowering this? Why? I just felt like the cliff was really, really steep, especially towards the water, for us to do kind of what I'm envisioning. I looked at some houses on the workshop, and I'm still on the fence about using them. But for now, I think we're going to design sort of how we want the houses, or where we want the houses to go based on the infrastructure of the road. And then we'll kind of go from there. So obviously this kind of plateaus the area. Not sure, maybe we need to do like another change in here so we don't just quite, just don't get rid of everything. So let's take some of that height. Probably should have left a little bit of height in here. So maybe it goes up a couple stages. I know it's a little bit flat, but perhaps we can kind of figure something out as we go. It'd be kind of cool if the houses were on the outside, right? And then the interior had some elevation to it. I'm going to set a nice kind of ramp up for where I want the road to connect. I think this is a good spot to transition into like a 2-lane. So I'm going to go ahead and do something, well, not one way. Let's go to, what's under rural? This may not be what I need at all. No, not really. Back to 2-lane. Let's just do 2-lane with grass for right now. And that kind of came in a little bit wide. So I'm going to bring it back and try that again. Let's have it bend this way. Nope, that's not what I need. I kind of want this, but there we go. Now we're getting there. So I want it organic to follow the pathing of the cliff, right? And I mean making it sort of react to kind of how the cliff is set up. But you can see we're not getting like great shape. So I'm going to actually take out some of these trees as well so I can see a little bit better. All right, so we have another change in there. There's the change in height. Okay, good to know. Okay, so we have a little bit bigger housing going there. Now let's straighten it out some. Come this way. And I essentially, I mean, we're basically going to make a loop, I think. The road could use some work, though. But you can see, like, we have plenty of space for some, decent size housing. So I think we're on the right track. I'm going to take this back a little bit, and we're going to see if we can do... And then we're going to do a kind of a loop back. Forgot some trees. Once we come back this way. It's not too bad. Trying to keep it more organic than I normally would do anything. I feel like I often build so much in a grid format. I don't know if that drives anybody else crazy, but it's just something I do. Something I'm used to, I guess. Okay, so now we have an area. Now what I want to do too is just to create like a little bit of something different here, is almost do like a spot that comes out this way. Let's see if we can... And it's a pretty big neighborhood. Like, is it too big? Maybe. Maybe we need to carve a little bit more space out for this part of town, like this sector, to go into that space to cut down on the scale of it. we have a couple of options. I could do like a retaining wall basically running through here and then fill up this space with just more buildings. I don't know if that's the right strategy, but let's take a look at it and see sort of what we can do here. Maybe go in this direction. So this could look okay. Let's try to get it like leveled out maybe to there. All right, now you can see where the terrain is changing. So theoretically we might need to go, let's go all the way to the road and then let's smooth this out with like the road height almost. All right. And then I'm going to shift this over a bit. See kind of what we get. Okay. I'm going to start lowering that. You can see we're getting some kind of weird wrinkles. I don't really know why this needs to be that high. I'm tempted to actually say we bring this back this way and then drop it to the ground a little bit. Now, can I get the terrain to play along? Let's say, yeah, kind of clean this up some. Then I almost want to take this and tuck it like into here without it like actually connecting. Does that make sense? Like, I don't want to see, I don't want it to like automatically do its thing where it's like, oh, you want to connect these? Great, we'll do that for you. Because you tend to get some kind of crazy results here. And you can see it's already like fighting me. So we're going to lower this to here. There we go. Now, can we fake it until we make it? It may not let me. May not want to play along. Oh. So what I think we need to do is actually shift this closer, this guy, closer to the water. And then, does this need to come down more to like, yeah. It kind of defeats what I was hoping it would do for me. But if we bring that back, maybe I don't need that node anymore. And we just need this node to run into it. Sort of like this. And have this kind of end it. Right, maybe like right there. All right, now you can see it's definitely not high enough because I do want this to be like a solid terrain change. I should have looked at that a second ago. Let's go back up to like that height. That at least kind of like initiates some of the cliff, but why doesn't it want to play nicely? Oh me. Come on, cities. Help me out here, bud. Yeah, now we're getting somewhere. Okay. Now let's... Now you can see we still have like a lot of dead space back here, which is unfortunately something we're gonna have to contend with, I think. And oops. And I want that to be, yeah, there we go. Want that to be sort of remedied. I don't want that to just be like a massive bit of just nothing. And I don't really want more roads coming off unless we did something that kind of went this way and connected back up here. Maybe that would be kind of a neat idea. I don't know. I feel like regardless, like we're cutting into the land in one way or another, right? At least in the sense of like giving us less to really develop with housing if I do this. But then again, maybe? Maybe. Let's see if we change that to terrain height like that. Move some of it out at least. I just feel like messing with terrain is always, it's always a tricky thing. Sometimes it's like you can be really successful at it, and other times it's just like, nope. It doesn't like it. Don't do it. You're sort of, you have to fight and balance kind of what the game is giving you to do. I almost wonder instead of if this is like here, if this kind of comes across and loops back into itself. I don't know if that's really that necessary. But it just seems like these sort of duplicate each other, you know? Like where this line is. This line is also, I'm in the same spot. Okay. Let's see what it's going to look like if we continue to develop out this space though. And first, actually what I'm going to do is something a little bit sneaky, and that's that we're going to put a little parking lot over here. If you've watched some of the content that I've made on YouTube, you know that I do like retaining walls, and I like sunken roads and all that sort of stuff. If you have any interest in seeing how I do a lot of that on a more, I would say, advanced level with regards to like having a lot of assets and things to help make it look the way, you know, you may want it to look, I would check out a couple of the videos that I have on the channel, because I do a bunch of these sort of setups where I'm trying to like conserve space, right? By like designing something that utilizes terrain in a way that kind of benefits like a compact area versus having like a lot of dead space, right? I mean, you got to think of like land value and how to utilize that the best you can and kind of mush things into tight spaces. So whether that's doing something that is more focused around, you know, part of a city, like a major city, is like if you look at downtowns in some spots, they're often very compact. So I started trying to figure out retaining walls very early in me playing cities, because I wanted to figure out ways of like making some of my cities more compact. And I do not like that. I'm just trying to tuck some parking in here. And so like sunken roads and stuff like that are super interesting to me. When you're able to like sink in a highway into a city, I think that's like, that can be a lot of fun. This thing does not like being this close to this retaining wall. I can tell you that much. I don't know. That might be a little bit of a lot of stuff. That might be a little bit a lot in terms of, because I can't really, I can't put bigger buildings in all these areas. So let's trim this back a bit, go back to kind of how I had it along here. Maybe we divide it up that way, so there's just like a visual change to it at least. And then I'm also going to scale this side back. Maybe we can get another building in. See if I can, there we go. Clean that up and straighten it up a little bit so it looks a little bit nicer. A little more balanced as well. Actually do commercial here. And then we'll bring in a little bit more residential around the outside. So you can see we still have a little bit of dead space, but it's not too terrible. I'm also thinking that we do something with like maybe a little bit of pathing, and it's being a little bit crazy right now because I just have so many nodes in this like tucked in area that everything I'm doing is causing my pathing to go wherever it wants. That's what I needed. All right, so we're going to do something like this that maybe runs along and then eventually sort of curves into both the road and the seawall pathing. God, it really wants to put a bridge. It knows the water is there, that's for sure. All right, so what I want to start to see is how this area is going to develop in itself. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and, so it looks like all this is zoned. Let's adjust that a little bit. That's a nice little building tucked in right behind here too, actually. I really like that building. So, okay, this area is taking all that. Now we need something else for this space. So I'm going to start making a zone just for like our neighborhood. Okay, now let's start giving some houses, or let's start like planting some houses in here. And then we'll start to see what we can detail or do to make this all look a little bit nicer. I don't want to put anything too close to the cliff because it's just not going to look probably very good. Now I'm going to try to see how many houses we can fit into this area, but I don't want it to be overpopulated. So I'm fine with like having some dead space, but we can trim back the houses if necessary, if it feels like we're just trying to add way too much, because I do want it to feel very natural in a way. I got inspiration for this from looking at a plan of a subdivision that was being built, and they showed like where the lots were, and it was kind of cool because you basically could envision how the area was going to be set up long before they built any of the houses, and you basically buy the property and then they, you know, you eventually get a house on it. I don't think it's I think it's a little more sophisticated than that, but you know, I don't know if they have like a specific builder, so you have to buy the lot and then they build the house per their sort of like style or whatever. But it was kind of cool, and it's similar to like the layout that I've made. Like I kind of borrowed some inspiration from it, but hopefully this kind of gives the good vibes. But we'll see. I wanted to use the self-sustaining houses so it looks a little bit different, and we use some of that downtown in some of the areas, but I just think it kind of makes it look a little nicer. And this is obviously updating as well to something that, especially for the residential, that looks kind of cool, and especially next to the water, I think it'll look really neat. Now, I think what would be cool here is to maybe put like a little gate, or just give like a wall so it looks like it's sort of separated. Let me see what I have. Maybe we just go with the park fence, just kind of like a little iron fenced area here, and we just set up something that looks like it's, hey man, you can't just walk in here, you know. Okay, so we have a layout in, we have some of the houses in. I would really like them to develop so that we can start to see how we detail around them. I think one thing we can do to help out some of the land value would be to go in and make this into like a little park area here. Just in this like little strip. I don't know if it's going to do a ton, but it may increase the value a bit for this area around it. Just in this little spot. Underhill Grounds, that doesn't feel very fitting for this space. Canal Commons, I don't know if that's a very good name, but we'll see. All right, I'm gonna hit play, and we're gonna speed it up just a little bit. We're gonna go to 2 arrows here, and we're gonna start to see how this develops. In the meantime, I want to grab some trees and see how we can decorate this area a little bit, just to make it look kind of nice. And I might need to go grab a tennis court. I don't know that we have one currently. What kind of trees do we want to put in here? This is one of the ones I like. Yes. Let me go here. This is basically tree planting 101, just to place them in the corners as a starting point to kind of fill in some space. It also covers up where occasionally pathing kind of goes weird when it connects to other paths. You guys know when it forms those weird angles. If you use trees and bushes to cover those up, sometimes that's enough for you to, you know, continue moving without harping on a detail that you may or may not be able to fix very easily. So we also have some of these dead spaces here. And I think what I would like to do is just go back in and go to brushes. And basically, I just want to make this look a little bit more like we planned it. Like this is how we wanted it to look. Okay. See, something as simple as that makes it look way more finished. I love the wood on the buildings too. That's starting to make this look like really kind of a high-end space. Very happy to see that. There's a certain plant that I can never remember the name of that I think I used over here. Let me find it. Yes, this guy. Oops. That is not what I wanted you to do. This is what I need. Yep. And then we're going to do about 2 meters of spacing. And we're going to kind of run it along the edge here. Little fun bit of color. All right, so now you see this starting to be a little bit more lively. We have people coming in from the tram. We've got parking on the street, which I think is a nice feature for this area, given that it's, you know, a lot of commercial space and stuff. Let's see. Something else I think we need to do is just fill in a couple of these spaces that we made to make it look, again, a little bit more purposeful. Sometimes that's as simple as adding some pathing, some bushes, some trees, maybe a little playground, just filling in some of the dead space, especially when you have like awkward angles. In this case, I'll probably just do some trees, and I'm also going to add some of the pavement just to make it look like it's a planned space and it's not just empty. That tends, for me at least, to give away that it's just an area that like you haven't finished or you haven't figured out how to finish, which happens all the time, but just doing something as simple as landscaping helps. What I am wondering is if we should do something on one of these sides of the tram. I don't know. Look at the people coming in. That's great. I don't know if I should leave that for now or if I should start diving into doing that. We have plenty to do over here, so I'll focus over here for right now. Another area is here. We could go in and we could just do something like this just to make it look like we have some extra pathing in there. I'm going to grab the tree that we're sort of using for this area and just throw a couple of these in. I'm actually going to center them. I'm not going to do it in the corners like I do way too often. It's kind of nice. And then right sort of in the shadow here, you have our neighborhood starting to develop, which actually looks kind of fancy. It's getting there. So now we have this space, which we could do a little bit more of the same on. And I think what I'm actually going to do too is I'm going to go ahead in here and instead of getting too crazy with it, I'm going to take these trees, I think. Which one do I want to use? Let's see. Maybe just twin trunk. And then we're going to go to prop line tool. We're going to do about 15 meters apart so I can keep track of it a little bit. Let's do about 20 meters apart. And we're going to line the tram. Well, first the path there. Yep. And then I'm going to have it kind of centered a little bit differently on this portion. There we go. Okay. Then we're going to get a fence. Oops. Let's do park fence. Park fence is like a perfect fence for a lot of things. You can use that for neighborhoods. You can use it for industrial areas. You can use it for the fancy neighborhood we're trying to build. Whatever. This way people just aren't walking around and just hopping on the tracks, maybe. And I also think fences are a great way of detailing too. Especially when you just need to... Oh, did I miss a node? When you just need to add a little bit of flair somewhere, you know? You need to have something vertical. It can be great. So now we've sort of separated this area from the college a little bit, right? You have your own little portion of town here. Oh, look how well this is developing. It just needs a lot of like trees and stuff like that. Doesn't seem like the terrain change, the height change is really causing a ton of fuss, which is good. I think putting it behind the retaining wall and on the cliffs and on this peninsula makes it very secluded, isolated, maybe kind of elevating it to be a sort of fancy just part of town or just a fancy neighborhood, I guess. I could see this being kind of like a high class area or country club type neighborhood with a golf course. I thought about doing bigger buildings up here, but I just feel like it would be, it wouldn't do the service that I want it to. So I feel like we're starting to set this up to be like a very cool little space. Something else you can do when you're filling in like city blocks. Again, take the brush and we can start to like put like little pathways in, right? So you start to create like a little bit of a structure back here, clean it up a little bit. So it just doesn't look like empty space. And then we go throw in a few trees. And it's like you sort of have a park here. So I'm going to throw in a tree here just to cover up that gap. A lot of green space. But very nice. All right, so look at how this little chunk of land is turning out, man. It's a little bit more dense than I probably would have preferred. I love how these buildings are sort of like hanging out. That's honestly excellent for what I would like. Now, we've got to start working on that transition. I kind of want to go ahead and build like a small square here that someone could potentially build off of if they would like to in the near future. So let's kind of give some thought to that. I'm going to slow down the playback since we've got a lot of our stuff developed. The only bummer right now that I see is that these areas are pretty blank. So I feel like if we can copy some houses in, maybe that'll sort of fix some of that issue. And then what I would like to potentially do is find a tennis court or something like that in here to make this seem like it's all just like one unit, you know? And then even like a little bit of a path running through here, like a natural path might be really neat. That may solve some of these gaps too. Let's work on that. So I'm just going to take like a little dirt path, and then we're going to have it kind of like going through this area. And I have a feeling what I'll need to do is just kind of grab some of the nodes and tweak placement a little bit. And I don't want it to be like a very like straight line. The only bummer about this is like you buy a house in this fancy neighborhood and you have people like walking in your backyard, but it's just going to be part of it. Hopefully they don't mind. All right, we're going to have this kind of curve this way. That gives like a kind of a cool look too, right? That's neat. I don't know. That's something kind of fun. What's interesting about like building on YouTube and like for this series has been playing with some of these designs like live. Like I'm used to doing it on Twitch, but when it's pre-recorded, you know, I usually use a lot of you know, suggestions that chat would throw in and stuff like that to create some of the things I'm making. So it's kind of neat to do it, but not have that immediate feedback. I guess it's neat, but it's also like a lot of pressure. It gets intense. I know like Overcharged Egg and others, you know, do more streaming and content, pre-recorded content on YouTube, but it's something different for me because I'm used to like the live interaction with people. So bear with me if I just tend to ask myself questions. It's really meant for you guys, but you know, I have to check your responses in a few days, I guess, to see if I'm doing poorly or doing well. I'm just kind of making like a lookout area. So if you wanted to come up here and get a nice view, you can. Now for this portion, let's go ahead and get some of this laid out. I'm not going to do too much on this side. I just want to give, if anybody decides to hop over here and add something, I want them to have like a little bit of infrastructure to see kind of where I think it should go or could go. But they obviously would be free to do what they would like. I think it'd be really cool to like offset this and have directions going like, or have the road start moving in this direction. Something like that. I also think we may upgrade this road given that there can be more of an extension in that direction. Also need to fix this here. An extension to town could exist this way, right? So we're going to increase the capacity of the roads. Oops. Get rid of some trees just right in this space. I think this is also a really dynamic way to kind of switch up your building, and especially if you're starting off with a grid, right, is to do something that has like a 45-degree angle off of it. I don't want this to be too high capacity for roads and stuff, but I do want, you know, obviously for it to function the way it needs to. But having it branch off like this is something that I've started to do in some of my cities, and it tends to work out fairly well in making it look way more dynamic when your starting point is a grid system. 1010 would recommend. Well, that's something. So let's do, I think this area would just be like a little park area here. And I don't really know if we need to add a whole lot other than I'm going to give it like an extra like walking path just across. And then here, I think we're going to do a little bit more of the commercial that we have on this side. Let me make sure my zone, yeah, it is over here. Good. I'm going to go ahead and extend it just to about there to there. And maybe that's kind of the area that we'll fill. And then someone will have an idea for where it can go. Because I think projecting out this way would be really, really cool. So let's go ahead and do a little bit of commercial here. And then we're going to have some residential right behind it. And I wonder if we ought to do like another little parking lot kind of thing. Although it's kind of neat if this is like facing the park, but I don't really want another break in the road either. We do kind of have a little bit of a lot here where it wouldn't be crazy to have some sort of parking. Let's see how that looks. It may look a little bit poor. So you may just now be realizing that I do build a lot of parking in my cities. It's often a conversation topic. Can we do that? I think what I want to do is I want to take this and actually let's take that out real quick. Let's come off of here first. Just like right there. And then we're gonna do the parking lot right here. Cool. Looks okay. And then we still have a spot for like one little building, maybe like right there. Yeah. Cool. And you can see demand is still pretty good. So I think this will work out fine. So we have like a commercial square, a couple commercial squares like bouncing off each other, although they aren't the same. So it's not like perfectly identical. And like, look at how good it looks too with this road going right across from the, what I look at as the admin building, but that is the, no, it's the administration building. Perfect. Yeah. Right off that. Yumble would be so happy. Yumble's great though. If you guys have not checked out Yumble or any of the other builders for that matter, there's some awesome people involved in this. And again, I think I said this last time, but I'm pretty honored to be, have been asked to be a part of it. But it's really kind of amazing. Like I've been checking out what people are doing, but coming in and actually seeing it and like looking around at what people have been making, it's just crazy. Like when you're working on this together and seeing kind of what people are up to, like firsthand, it's really cool. Like what Sanctum Gamer did with like the rivers and waterfalls is amazing. Everybody and like their contributions has been it's been really fun to see the progress that this has made. And obviously we did like the big mall here in one of our last videos, and you can see how look at how big the city is getting, man. It's wild. And of course, it's been like weeks since I've gone into the save. Well, weeks. It's been actually months now that I think about it. There's a nice little break in kind of the monotony of the town. I think we have we have like one area here that doesn't have anything. What could we put here? I think a library. Yeah, library is like way too big. I don't know. I don't want to put anything too hefty that might drive a lot of traffic, but do we need a service maybe? Maybe you ought to put like a little clinic here in the corner to help care for all these new citizens moving in. So while that kind of develops, let's go back over here. And I think what I want to do is I want to add a couple more paths for folks to, for like walking paths. So let's try to find some spots where we can do this. I'm going to have that come out this way. Because I think once we start going in and doing a bunch of the, some like trees and stuff like that, this will look really kind of neat. Sometimes what I like to do is like, I like to look for these intersections. And this is where I'd put like, you know, something like that. So if like they're just walking here and they're like, oh, we want to come down this way and hop on this path, they can. What I'm going to do for a minute here is I want to start looking at like if I use forest brush to fill in some of these areas, sort of what we're going to get, because it doesn't need to be super developed, right? It's sort of secluded, isolated from the town, and very natural at that. I do think we need to add some more houses in here, but let's see if we start to put in a little bit of vegetation, what we get. We're going to kind of do a little bit of a high density. I'm kind of putting trees in their yard, aren't I? There we go. And like around the path. Oh, that's kind of, that actually, you ever build something and you're kind of happy with how it turns out a little bit earlier than you expect to be? That's where I'm at right now. I did not know if this was going to work the way I had envisioned, and it's progressing pretty well. I feel that like I often hesitate with doing very organic pathing and stuff like that for neighborhoods, just because it can be kind of a project within itself. But thankfully, it seems like this is crazy to kind of bite off and like try to make it work. I think we need another path here, so let's work on that. So then connecting to this side, have it sort of come around, and it's almost like little lookouts along the edge of the rock. But what I realize this is doing is it's filling in a lot of the need for like, man, it just wants to put a bridge everywhere, doesn't it? I just don't want a bridge there. Can't seem to get it to force. There we go. Didn't want to, but now it does. If you don't have forest brush, it's such a good little feature. It's great. It's a good mod. You can save a bunch of time just to create like a dense like area of trees, obviously with like it being named forest brush, but also to mix up some of your trees. And I like to kind of keep things a little bit organized. So I like using, you know, a set of trees versus like every tree being the same or different. Like it kind of, you're able to adjust probability and stuff like that. And I think that is like a huge deal for detailing, is like when you start to be able to mix up different assets, do some different things. And just, again, adding trees like that is doing a lot for what this area might look like. I wonder if some of the thin trees are happening because of the fire earlier. All right, let's fill in this kind of like strip of land a little bit. You know, I would put a parking lot too here, but I don't want it to be like public access, right? So it's kind of, I feel like almost defeat the purpose, other than like the neighborhood folks using it, but still, you know, like it just kind of, you don't want really people just going to park somewhere. You want them just to kind of walk around and hang out if they would like. It's an option. It's like something that the realtor would put on the thing. It's like got a 5 miles of walking path. All right, we're just gonna kind of fill this area in just kind of nicely through here. And I'm keeping like no houses like right on that first intersection. So like if you come in, you don't see sort of headlights at night if you're living in here. Wow, look at how like grown up that's starting to look. And again, very, very mild details, right? I think there's a ton of stuff we can do. Like I kind of want to add some rock features or something like that. I mean, you could add little islands out here if you wanted, depending on the assets that you have. We just got to figure out these couple little pockets, but you can see this area is starting to develop pretty nicely as well. Let's see, what kind of pool do we have? I think this will work well, just fine. And then let me see, I grabbed a tennis court that we could use. Cool. I kind of want to take this into C. No, it's not going to change it. Just looks a little bright for what I'm looking for, but it'll be okay. Now let's add the pool that I just saw in, and we're just going to use the community pool. Okay. Sort of parking lot options do we have besides just parking lot roads, or is that pretty much, that may just be about it. I wonder if we should just switch this road to have parking on it. Because I don't feel like this is a whole lot of room to do much of a parking lot. Unless we like, let's see, what if we did a couple small lots using parking lot roads? So we kind of came off of here. We did like something like that maybe? I don't know, maybe that's enough for this area. I don't want to take this and just kind of bring it down a little bit. Can I get another house here? Perfect. And now we have our pool. We have our tennis court tucked in here. Just found a couple items off the workshop that looked nice. And can fill in some of the space without having to go too crazy. Okay, the last space we have is over here for the kind of our exclusive neighborhood. I'm tempted to see if we can fit a couple houses in, so I'm just going to grab a couple and flip them into place and see how that does. I noticed that a couple houses in my beachside town had disappeared. I'm not exactly sure why, but it may be something to look at a little bit later. I'm just going to see if we can fill in some of this down on this side. And then if we can get like one more house in right up here. And then I'm going to tell it to go to terrain height so it smooths that out a bit. Nice. Awesome. We have some dead space here, and you know what? I think I have an idea. Let's actually trim that back a bit. All right, let's put a cul-de-sac here. So I'm going to drag this out, and we're going to do an angle like that. It's been a while. Let me see if I can do this. Yeah, we're doing 150% stretch there. And that may seem wild, and this doesn't look like a cul-de-sac until you flip it back this way, and bam, you've got a little cul-de-sac there. Perfect. And what we can do is then fill in this area like so. And this space can begin to develop. And I'm going to go ahead and add some trees to just place some separation between the neighborhood and the commercial residential area out here. Now let's grab a few trees and do just a little bit of like point and click kind of detailing just to fill in some of these spaces so it doesn't look so barren. I'm also trying to be pretty careful with assets that I don't like just overload areas with too much stuff, which obviously can be problematic when you're like, you know, transferring the save file between other folks. And we have like, for example, this space here. So we can take our brush and just make basically like little interior parks. And let's just create like little stuff like that. And if someone who wants, they can take this road and do something with it if they prefer go that route. Got a lot of trees here, but I think that's kind of helpful to divide some of the residential up from like the lower residential up from some of the buildings, you know? I tend to like, in some of my builds, I'll use almost like a little pocket of forest just to start breaking down some of the height between houses and buildings, because it can be like really abrupt if you're not very careful. But man, I think for the most part, this place is this is looking pretty good. I think we've developed a cool little area here. Let's see what little things we can work on just to kind of finish it out. I think there's a ton of stuff you could do. I mean, I know some folks will probably say like you could add benches on the path, and there's plenty of those kind of things. I just want to add like a little bit of just see what else we have to kind of make this you know, pop a little bit in some areas, maybe just like some rock formations in a couple spots or something. I could see like going in and adding a bunch of bushes and shrubs. Oh, look, another milestone. Oh, Imperial Timber Processing. Look at Jedi. Just, oh man. Being a legend. I think like in here would be really cool to have some bushes and shrubs and things to kind of divide up the rocks from the main terrain. But I think there's plenty more we can do to this area over time. Maybe if we get another swipe at it, we could come in and do like some heavy duty detailing in some of these spaces. I just don't want to overload the save just yet, and then cause chaos and mayhem for everybody else trying to build. This is actually kind of a neat way to add like some rocks, like it's broken up instead of just a cliff, you know, stacking these elements like that. It's a little jagged. It looks a little treacherous. Hope no one decides to go for a too crazy of a run along our trail. They're going to be in some trouble if they slip or something. We probably should add a fence, but hopefully they'll be okay. Well, I think that about wraps it for me today. We did a little bit more than I thought with setting up an area outside of the neighborhood in terms of that little city structure that's just across the street from the college. But I think overall this turned out really nice. Hopefully it inspires you to create some little neighborhoods and pockets and things, even suburbs that are filling up spaces that you may not know what to do with, and maybe creating things that are sort of organic in shape. While simple, I thought this would be a fun challenge to take on, given I didn't know how to fill the space. I really wanted this to be more about setting up an infrastructure with this video, whereas our last video when we were working with Capital City was more focused on detail. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you did, be sure to hit the subscribe button, like the video, and leave a comment down below. Visit us at twitch.tv/slate3k. And stay tuned for the next video, which will be focused on our little beach town. See you next time.